Monday Morning Quarterback, brought to you by Xfinity.
All right, coming up on 7:30 on this Monday morning, and that means it is time to get into our Monday morning quarterbacks. We are going to talk about George Santos today, freshman representative, facing calls for resignation for fabrications, but he did land 2 committee assignments. At least that's expected to be the case. Talk about that story and treatment in Congress. You got the SNL treatment over the weekend. Plus, speaking of Congress, how about the cameras there? Do you want to see them continue or not? Let's welcome today's panelists, Democratic strategist Calvin Dark and Republican strategist Orlando Sanchez. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with George Santos. He got the SNL treatment over the weekend, so it's not dying down now as far as some of his claims over the years. However, it takes on a little different impact when you talk about committee assignments in Congress. Calvin, I think I know where you will go with this. Orlando, you're our guest. Let's start with you. What happens with George Santos?
Well, short of a criminal conviction, I think he stays. I mean, the Republicans need him. He supported McCarthy. And by the way, this is the reason they call it the People's House. This is nothing new. I remember our former Congressman Ken Benson dressed up as Fidel Castro. Alexandria Cortez is under investigation. Former Congressman Steve Stockman convicted of fraud. And, of course, Anthony Weiner sending sexually explicit material to underage kids. Is this Congress, for God's sakes, the House of Representatives?
You know, Kevin McCarthy, I'll stick with you for 1 second, Orlando. A quick follow-up. Kevin McCarthy said, essentially, he has to earn our trust now in Congress. How does he go about doing that?
Well, I mean, they put him on insignificant committees, first of all, but I think he'll have to work hard to convince the members that he is a contributing member of the House. I mean, unfortunately, his indiscretions may not rise to a criminal offense, but it certainly questions his judgment.
All right, Calvin, let's get your take on this. What do you think about what's going on right now as far as the committee assignments being assigned and just him being there in the first place?
Well, you know, maybe it's just the optimistic American in me, but I don't think there are any insignificant committees in Congress. When I think about the fact, like with the Small Business Committee, you know, George Santos is going to have a say that only 434 other people have. After all of the lies about his businesses, he's now going to have a say in things that affect millions of Americans, not just the 700 or so thousand that he represents. So I think this is absolutely horrible. And I know that there have been other members of Congress that had issues, ethics violations, but this is unprecedented. He's got them and he just started.
Should he, and Calvin, I'll stick with you for a quick follow-up as well. Should he step down? Should he be forced to step down? Obviously, you might have ethics look into this, but what do you feel should happen?
Should he step down? Yes. Should the Republicans pressure him to step down? Yes. But let me tell you, when you hear these arguments about, you know, the people of his district voted him in, or this would set a bad precedent because he hasn't been accused of a crime, I don't buy it, because I have a feeling that if the shoe was on the other foot and George Santos was a Democrat, the Republicans would find a way to get around precedent and figure out how to get him out of Congress. But
all right, Orlando,
I don't see that at all.
One more quick question for you, Orlando, on this, and then we'll change subjects. At what point would he become a liability to the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, I think if there's a criminal conviction, some kind of criminal fraud or some kind of tax evasion, then it becomes a real liability and he'll be forced to resign. But it ain't going to happen. I mean, they need him. His district is a swing district. And, you know, the Republicans and McCarthy are not going to give up that crucial vote in the House of Representatives.
All right, let's switch gears right now. Speaking of the House, when it came to the Speaker vote, and speaking of McCarthy for purposes, we had a little different look when we were watching C-SPAN, and a lot of us were watching late on a Saturday night. You got to see everybody in the chamber, and it's something that you typically didn't get to see. So now there's some questions. Should you continue to be able to see everything, essentially, that's happening when it comes to lawmakers, who they're talking to, who they're dealing with on the floor? Calvin, I'll start with you. Do you think that should continue or not?
You know, I struggled with this one because I'm usually for transparency, and I think we should see. I want to see how the sausage is made. However, I don't want my TikTok feed filled with wannabe viral moments from the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Matt Gaetzes of Congress. So this is a hard one, but I think in the end, we should have transparency, and the transparency should be decided independently by the media, C-SPAN, and not by the Congress who we're supposed to be watching.
All right, Orlando, your take on this, taking the phrase from Calvin, do you want to see how the political sausage is made or not?
Well, I do. I mean, I'm with Kelvin. There ought to be full transparency. The question is, I mean, do I really want to see Sheila Jackson Lee blow her nose on the floor of the House? Or do I want a general grasp of what the debate is and what the feeling is and how the votes are? I don't have a problem with showing the full House floor, but if they want to focus in on members, so be it.
All right, but we will see what happens, and I appreciate both of you joining us today. Orlando, good to see you. Calvin, good to see you as always as well. I appreciate you both being here and hope you have a fantastic week.
Thank you.
All right, good to see both of you. Jeanette?